My daughter thinks I'm a good person. No, that's not right. She thinks I'm selfless. She said that word. More than once. Just casually, like it's obvious. Like it's something everyone agrees on. And every time she says it, I smile. I do the whole thing. Oh, honey, stop. You know, deflect it, make it light. But inside, it's not light. Inside it feels like I'm standing on something that could crack at any second. Like if I shift my weight even a little, everything underneath me just gives out. Because there's something she doesn't know. And I've been carrying it for 6 years now. 6. And I keep thinking it'll get easier to say. Like, maybe time will soften it or organize it or, I don't know, make it make sense. But it doesn't. It actually gets heavier. Like the longer I don't say it, the more impossible it feels to ever say it. And then I think, okay, well now it's too late to say it, so I just keep not saying it. And that becomes its own thing. I just keep going in that circle. Over and over. And I don't know what to do with that anymore. So, I'm here, talking to a camera. Which, honestly, if you had told me a year ago I'd be doing this, I would have laughed. Or just left the room. But apparently this is where I am. Okay. I've been sitting here for, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes, trying to start this. And every time I start, I hate it. It sounds too clean. Too rehearsed. Like I'm trying to make myself look better than I actually was. So I keep deleting it. And I think that's part of the problem, actually. I've been editing the story for so long that I don't even know what the unedited version sounds like anymore. So I'm just going to talk. And not fix it. Even if I sound bad. Or inconsistent. Or selfish. Because I think that's closer to the truth. My name doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I'm 45. I live near where I grew up, small town in Ohio. Nothing remarkable, and for almost 4 years, 3 years and 8 months, exactly, I took care of my ex-husband while he was dying. And yeah, I know how that sounds. I know what people think when they hear that. I've seen their faces. I've heard the way they talk about me when they think I'm not listening, or sometimes when they know I am. They think they understand why I did it. My daughter thinks she understands. Gary's family thinks they understand. Even I, for a long time, I told myself I understood. But the truth is, it's not that simple. It's not clean. It's not one reason, or even a few neat reasons you can line up and point to. It's layered. Messy in a way that doesn't resolve into anything satisfying. And I avoided looking at that for a long time. Like, intentionally avoided it. Because once you look directly at something like that, you can't unsee it. And then you have to decide what to do with it. So I didn't look. Not really. But I think I have to now. Gary and I met when I was 24. He was 29, and he had this easy confidence. You know the kind? The kind that feels like warmth when you're young. Like safety. Later, it reads differently. But at the time, I was gone. Completely. Within 3 months, I was all in. We got married when I was 26. Had our daughter, Brianna, at 28. And for a while, it was good. I need to say that. Because it's true. It was good. Not perfect, but real. We laughed. We built something. There was a version of our life that made sense. And then it didn't. I'm not going to go into all of that. Some of it isn't just mine to tell, and honestly, the specifics don't change what matters here. What matters is that by the time Brianna was 12, Gary and I were basically roommates who didn't like each other very much. And by the time she was 14, I started thinking things I hadn't let myself think before. Like, is this it? Like, is this my whole life now? And once that question shows up, it doesn't really go away. I left when Brianna was 16. I was the one who asked for the divorce. That was me. I've been a little vague about that in the past, depending on who I was talking to. But no, it was my decision. Gary didn't take it well. Which I get. I do. He said he didn't see it coming. And maybe that's true. Maybe I got so good at pretending everything was fine that even he believed it. The divorce was Ugly. Small town ugly. The kind where suddenly everyone knows your business and has an opinion about it. You start noticing which grocery store feels safe, which one doesn't. Gary's family chose him. Which, yeah, that makes sense. But it meant that I became the story. And not a flattering one. I was the woman who left. Who broke the family. Who couldn't make it work. And I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. I just stayed quiet. And when you stay quiet, people fill in the blanks for you. That part matters. More than I realized at the time. Because that story, the one everyone believed about me, that's the story I ended up trying to change. And I didn't even fully understand that I was doing it until it was already too late to pretend I wasn't. And what came next? I still don't know how to explain without it sounding worse than I meant it to be. Brianna was caught in the middle of all of it, in a way that still, honestly, makes me feel a little sick when I think about it too long. Because she loved her father. Of course she did. He was her dad. And from her perspective, things just broke. Suddenly. Without a clear explanation she could hold on to. And I was the one who left. So for a while, actually for almost 2 years, she was angry at me. Not loud, dramatic anger all the time. Sometimes it was quiet. Which is worse, I think. Just distance. Short answers. That feeling when your own child looks at you like you're not entirely safe to trust. And I didn't fight it. I could have. I could have tried to explain more, defend myself, push back. But that would have meant telling her things she didn't need to carry at 16. Things that weren't hers. And also, if I'm being honest, I think a part of me believed I deserved it. So I let her be angry. And that period, it was the loneliest I've ever been. I had this small apartment that never quite felt like home. A job I didn't care about. Friends who had sort of drifted into different orbits without me. And a daughter who barely spoke to me unless she had to. I'm not saying that for sympathy. I'm really not. I'm saying it because that kind of loneliness, it changes how you think. It changes what feels important. What feels urgent. Looking back now, I should have paid more attention to that. Because I didn't realize how much that loneliness was shaping what I did next. Gary was diagnosed when Brianna was 19. It started with early onset Parkinson's. And then other complications layered on top of it. Faster than anyone expected. It wasn't gradual in the way people imagine illness sometimes is. It had this momentum. Like once it started, it just kept accelerating. And every update was worse than the last. Brianna called me when she found out. I remember exactly where I was. I was in my car, in a parking lot, just sitting there, and she was crying so hard, she could barely get the words out. And I just listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't try to fix it. I just stayed on the phone and let her cry. And something happened in me during that call. I've gone back to that moment so many times, trying to understand it. Like if I could just slow it down enough, I'd see exactly what shifted. Part of it was real. It was compassion. It was. Gary wasn't just some random person. He was someone I'd known for almost 20 years. He was Brianna's father. Whatever had gone wrong between us, he mattered in a real way. And hearing that he was sick did hit something in me. I felt it. I want to be clear about that, because I think it matters. But that wasn't the only thing I felt. There was something else. And I hate saying this. I really do. But when Brianna told me he was sick, I had this thought. Not fully formed. Not noble. Just there. I thought about what it would look like if I helped. I thought about how people would see that. How the story that had been sitting wrong in that town for 2 years, how it might shift. I had that thought. And I didn't push it away. I wish I could say I did. I wish I could say it never crossed my mind or that I rejected it immediately. But I didn't. It just stayed there. Quiet. Waiting. I didn't act on it right away. I want to be fair about that. It wasn't like I heard the diagnosis and immediately made some calculated decision. There was time. There were visits, conversations, figuring things out. But that thought, it stayed in the background. And eventually, it became part of the decision. I moved back into the house about 4 months after Gary was diagnosed. Not into our old bedroom. I stayed in the guest room. That mattered to me, at least symbolically. Like I was drawing some kind of line. But I was there, in the house. And little by little, I started taking over his care. At first it was small things. Appointments, picking up medications, making sure the insurance paperwork got handled, which, by the way, nobody prepares you for how brutal that part is. The phone calls, the forms, the endless explaining. And then it grew. More appointments, more coordination, more physical help as his condition got worse. And I just stepped into it, day by day. And then something else happened. I started to notice how people responded. Gary's mother, Patricia, hadn't spoken to me in almost 2 years. Wouldn't even be in the same room as me. About a month after I moved back, she called me. She was crying. And she said, "I misjudged you." Those exact words. "I misjudged you." And I said something gracious. I don't even remember what. Something appropriate. Something that matched the version of me she was seeing in that moment. And then I hung up. And I just sat there. In the kitchen. Not doing anything. Just sitting. Because I felt it. That shift. My own mother started calling more, too. She had never fully agreed with my decision to leave Gary. She'd been polite about it, but not supportive. And suddenly, she was proud of me. She'd say it outright. "I'm so proud of you." Apparently, she was telling people, too, because I'd run into women I barely knew, at the pharmacy, at the grocery store, and they'd grab my arm and say things like, "Your mother tells me what you're doing. God bless you. God bless you." I heard that more times than I can count. And Brianna, that was the part that mattered most. She started looking at me differently. I don't know how else to say it. It wasn't something she said out loud at first. It was in her eyes. In the way she spoke to me. The way she softened. Something shifted. And I felt it. And this is the part that's hard to admit. I needed it. More than I realized at the time. I needed her to see me that way again. Maybe even more than I needed anything else. I was getting credit for being selfless. For being good. For doing the right thing for the right reasons. And I took it. Every single time. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't qualify it. I didn't say, "Well, it's more complicated than that." I just accepted it. Let it build. Let it settle into place. And the more people believed it, the easier it became to believe it myself. At least on the surface. But there was another part of my life happening at the same time. A part that didn't fit that story at all. A part one kept completely separate. Completely hidden. And I told myself it didn't change anything. That it didn't take away from what I was doing. That it was allowed. I told myself a lot of things. But if anyone had known, if Brianna had known, if Patricia had known, the entire story would have looked different. Not slightly different. Completely different. And I knew that. I knew it the whole time. And I kept it anyway. And that's where things start to get harder to explain. Now this is the part I've never said out loud. Not to anyone. Not even halfway. Not even by accident. I've thought it. I've circled around it. I've almost said it a few times and then just stopped. So, okay. During those 3 years and 8 months, I was seeing someone. His name was Dennis. Even saying his name out loud like that feels strange. Like I'm pulling something into the open that was never supposed to be seen in daylight. He lived about 40 minutes away. Different town. One of those places where you can go and just be someone else for a few hours because nobody knows your face, your history, your story. We met through a friend of a friend. It was at this small gathering I almost didn't go to. I remember sitting in my car before I went in, thinking I should just leave. That I didn't have the energy for small talk or pretending to be okay. But I went in anyway. And that's where I met him. And then it just kind of happened. Quietly. Slowly. And then not slowly at all. We were together for almost all of it. Almost the entire time Gary was sick. And I need to be very careful here. because this is where I've justified things to myself over and over. I was divorced. Legally. Completely. I wasn't cheating. I wasn't breaking any vows. I have said that to myself, honestly, thousands of times. Like it's some kind of shield. But that's not the whole truth either. Because I also knew something else. Very clearly. If Brianna had known, if Patricia had known, if anyone in that world had known, the story changes. Completely. The selfless ex-wife who comes back to care for the man who hurt her becomes something else. Something more complicated. Less clean. Maybe less admirable. And I knew that. Every single time I got in my car and drove those 40 minutes, I knew that. Dennis wasn't a bad person. I need to say that, because it matters. He was kind. Patient. The kind of person who listens all the way through when you talk, instead of just waiting for his turn. He knew about Gary. About the situation. About the fact that I was living there again. Taking care of him. And he didn't push. He didn't ask me to choose. Didn't make demands. Didn't create ultimatums. He'd just say things like, I understand. In that quiet way that makes you want to believe him. And I think he did understand. At least, as much as anyone could. But I was never fully there with him. Not really. Because I was always holding two realities at once. Daytime me, caretaker, responsible, dependable, the person everyone was quietly admiring. And then the other version. The one who would drive 40 minutes and step into a completely different life for a few hours. You can't do that indefinitely without it doing something to you. Splitting like that. It takes more than you think it will. At least it did for me. We ended things a few months after Gary died. That was my decision. Not because Dennis did anything wrong. He didn't. But by that point, I was so used to dividing myself into parts that I didn't know how to be whole in front of someone anymore. I didn't even know what whole meant anymore. And he deserved that. He deserved someone who could actually show up fully. Not half a person managing two lives. So I ended it. And I told myself that was the right thing. The honest thing. But even that, if I'm being honest, felt a little too late to qualify as anything clean. I need to tell you about the nights. Because otherwise, everything I've said so far, it leans too heavily in one direction. And that's not accurate either. There were nights, so many nights, where Gary couldn't sleep. Parkinson's does that. It disrupts everything. Not just movement, but rest, stillness, peace. There were nights where he was restless, scared in a way he didn't want Brianna to see. She was in her early 20s, trying to build her life. And Gary, he didn't want to burden her with that part of it. So he'd call for me. And I'd go. No hesitation. No calculation in those moments. I'd sit with him. Sometimes we'd talk. About random things, honestly. Old memories. TV shows. Nothing deep. Sometimes we wouldn't talk at all. I'd just sit in the chair by the window while he tried to settle. 2 in the morning. 3. Those hours felt different from everything else. Quieter. More real, somehow. Like whatever complicated mix of reasons had brought me into that house, those moments didn't care about any of that. I was just there. And he needed someone. And I stayed. I hold on to that. Probably more tightly than I should. Because it's grounding. It's proof, at least to me, that there was something real in what I was doing. Something not driven by image or perception or any of the other things. But I also wonder, sometimes, if I hold on to those nights because they make the rest of it easier to live with. Like if I can point to those hours and say, see, that was real, then maybe I don't have to look as closely at everything else. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Gary died in February, 3 years ago now. And the grief, it was strange. I didn't expect that part. I thought I knew what it would feel like. But I didn't. Because when someone you used to love, someone you stopped loving a long time ago, when they die, the grief doesn't land cleanly. It doesn't know where to go. I cried at the funeral. Real tears. Not performative. Not forced. But I couldn't fully explain them. It wasn't just for him. Or maybe not even mostly for him. It was for something. The years we had. The version of life I thought I was stepping into when I was 24 and completely gone on him. That version of the future. It dies too. In a way. And you feel that. Even if you haven't believed in it for years. Brianna was devastated. Which is what you want, right? You want your child to have loved their parent that deeply. But it meant she needed me again. In a different way. A complete way. She moved back in for a while after the funeral. And we settled into this quiet routine. Cooking together. Watching TV. Taking the dog on long walks. Sometimes she'd lean her head on my shoulder the way she used to when she was little. And I would just sit there. And breathe. And not move. Because those moments felt fragile. Like if I did anything wrong, they'd disappear. And then one night, about 6 months after the funeral, we were sitting at the kitchen table. It was late. Quiet. And she had that look. You know the one. Where you can tell she's been thinking about something for a while and she's finally decided to say it. And she asked me something. A simple question. But not really simple. She said, "Mom, how did you do it?" And I didn't realize it then, but that question, that was the moment everything could have changed. She said, "Mom, how did you do it?" And I remember the exact way she said it. Not dramatic, not accusing, just genuine. Like she was trying to understand something that didn't quite fit in her head. How did you go back and take care of him after everything? And there was this pause. Not a long one. Just a second. Maybe less. But it felt like longer. It felt like one of those moments where everything sort of slows down. Like your brain is giving you a window. A choice. And I knew it. I knew it in that second. I could feel it. I could have said something real. Not everything. Not all at once. But something honest. Something that cracked the surface. Something like, it wasn't just one reason. Or, there are things you don't know. Or, even just, it's complicated. Anything that opened the door even a little. I had that option. And instead, I said, "He was your father. Of course I loved him." And the second it left my mouth, I knew. I knew that wasn't the truth. Not the full truth. Not even close. It was the clean version. The version that fits. The version that doesn't create more questions. And she started crying. Right there at the table. And she got up, came around, hugged me, tight, and I held her. And I didn't say anything else. I just let her believe it. Let her cry into a version of the story that wasn't entirely real. And I stood there, holding my daughter, staring at the wall over her shoulder. And I said nothing. That's the moment I go back to. Not the beginning. Not the decision to move back in. Not Dennis. Not any of it. That moment. Because that was the clearest chance I had. Everything before that, you can argue with. You can explain. You can say it was complicated, layered, human. But that moment, that was simple. I had the truth in one hand, and something easier in the other. And I chose easier. I chose the hug over the truth. And I've been carrying that exact second for almost 3 years now. Brianna is 26 now. She lives in Nashville. She has this life that, I'm genuinely proud of her. Not complicated proud. Not considering everything proud. Just proud. She has a job she loves. She's been with her boyfriend for 2 years. They're stable in that way that feels earned. We talk every week. Sometimes more than that. And every time I see her name on my phone, I feel 2 things at once. Relief. And something else. Something underneath. Because every conversation we have has a layer she doesn't know about. It's always there. Quiet. Just under the surface. And I don't know how to remove it. I've thought about telling her. Not casually, like really thought about it. Sat down with a notebook. Tried to figure out how I'd even begin. What words I'd use. How much I'd say. What I'd leave out. And every version of that conversation, it ends in the same place. I don't know if it helps her. I think it helps me. I think saying it out loud, Being fully known, even if it's messy or disappointing or uncomfortable, I think that would take something off me. Something I've been carrying for a long time. But that's for me. Not for her. She has this version of those years. It's sad, yeah, but it's clean. Her parents showed up for each other at the end. Her father was cared for. He wasn't alone. Her mother did the right thing. That story, it matters to her. It shapes how she sees our family, how she sees me. And if I pull on that, if I change it, I don't know what happens. I don't know what it does to her. And all I'd be giving her, really, is a more accurate version. Not a better one. Just messier. More complicated. Harder to hold. So I keep going back and forth. For 3 years now. Is the truth worth it? Is accuracy worth what it costs? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. There's something else I've realized about myself through all of this. And I don't like it. But it's there. I'm very good at shaping a story. At taking the version that makes me look better, or at least more understandable, and leaning into it. Not lying exactly. Just emphasizing certain parts. Softening others. Letting some things fade into the background. I got really good at it during the divorce. Because the story people were telling about me, I couldn't live inside that. It didn't match how I saw myself. So I built a different version. And over time, I started believing it. That's the part that's unsettling. Not just telling it, believing it. And I think I did the same thing with Gary. I told the clean version so many times, to other people, to myself, that it started to feel like the whole truth. Like my reasons were simple, pure, straightforward. And then one day, just some random Tuesday, nothing special, I remember I was making coffee, and it just cracked. Like something shifted. And I saw it differently. I saw the other layers. The parts one hadn't been looking at. And I just stood there, holding a coffee mug, thinking, oh, that's what I was doing. That was not a good day. Dennis reached out about a year after we ended things. It was simple. A message. Just checking in. He was in a relationship. Seemed happy. There was nothing complicated about it. And I responded the same way. Warm. Friendly. Appropriate. That should have been it. And it was, externally. But for a few days after that, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Not in a romantic way. Not like I wanted him back. It was something else. He was the only person who knew everything. The full picture. Both sides of the story. And now he was just out there. Living his life. Holding that version of me. And nobody else knew he had it. There's something unsettling about that. About being fully known by someone who is now basically a stranger. Like that version of you exists somewhere. Outside your control. And you just have to live with that. Gary's mother, Patricia, still calls me. Birthdays. Anniversaries. The anniversary of Gary's death. She's in her 70s now. She lost her son. And somewhere in all of that, she found something in me she didn't expect. Something she believes in. And I can't take that away from her. I just can't. So I answer the phone. I'm kind. I listen. I accept what she offers, which is gratitude and warmth and this revised version of who she thinks I am. And then I hang up. And I feel it settle back onto me. That weight. And I go make dinner. Or take the dog out. And I keep going. That's mostly what I do. I keep going. But lately, it's been feeling different. Like something's catching up. And I don't know what that means yet. But I can feel it. And I don't think I can keep carrying it the same way much longer. I thought, at some point, this would resolve. Not neatly. I wasn't expecting that. But something. Some kind of landing. Like eventually I'd feel one clear thing about all of it, and that would be it. Guilt. Or peace. Or even just sadness with edges. Something I could point to and say, that's what this is. But that hasn't happened. What I have instead is this flatness. And I didn't expect that. That's the part that actually scares me a little. Because it's not dramatic. It's not overwhelming. It's just there. Like everything is behind glass. I can see it. I can describe it. I can sit here and talk about it, apparently. But I can't fully feel it. Not the way I think I should. And I keep wondering, am I okay? Or is this what it looks like when you've just pushed something down so many times it stops coming back up? I don't know. I honestly don't know. My therapist, she says I dissociate. She says it gently, like she doesn't want to scare me off from the word. But she says it, that when something feels too big, too complicated to hold all at once, I step back from it, without even realizing I'm doing it. And that makes sense to me. Because this is big. And it's not just one feeling. It's the layers that don't line up neatly. There's compassion in it. There's selfishness in it. There's love, somewhere. There's also performance. And trying to hold all of that at the same time without organizing it into something cleaner, it's exhausting. So maybe I just stop trying. But there are moments. Small ones. They don't last long, which almost makes them worse. Brianna will say something, just casually, about her dad, about those years. Or she'll say something about me. And I'll hear it, the way she sees me. And for a second, just a second, it's like the glass disappears. Or thins out. And I feel it. Not everything. But enough. Enough to know it's still there. And then it's gone again. Like it closes back up. And I go back to normal. I make a joke. I ask about her boyfriend. I change the subject. And we keep moving. Sometimes I wonder if that's just who I am now. Like, is this permanent? Is this what happens when you carry something for long enough without ever setting it down properly? Does it just become part of the structure? Like furniture you stop noticing until someone points it out. She's coming to visit next month. Brianna. She'll fly in, stay for 4 days. And it's going to be good. I know it is. It always is. She's a really good person. Funny, warm, easy to be around in a way that doesn't feel forced. And every time I see her, I have this thought. I did something right. Whatever else is true. I did something right. Because she's extraordinary. We'll do our usual things. Cook together. Watch movies. Take the dog on walks. She'll sit too close to me on the couch, like she always does, even though she's an adult now. And I'll pretend to be annoyed about it, and she'll laugh, and it'll feel normal. Real. And when she leaves, she'll hug me tight and say, "I love you, Mom." And I'll say it back. And both of those things will be completely true. And underneath it, there it is again. That other layer. Always there. I've thought about telling her during this visit. Of course I have. Every time she comes, I think maybe this is the time. Maybe this is when I sit her down and say, "There's something I need to tell you." And then I try to imagine it. What her face would look like. How long it would take for it to land. What she would say. If she'd be angry. If she'd understand. Or worse, if she'd understand and be angry. Because I think those can exist at the same time. And that might be harder to sit with. And every time I run through that, it slips away. Like I can't hold on to the decision long enough to act on it. It just dissolves. And I go back to doing nothing. So I've started to think maybe I'm not going to tell her. Not because I've decided it's the wrong thing. I haven't decided anything. It's more like, I can't get to a place where I can decide. Every time I try, it just slides out of reach. And I don't know what that says about me. Maybe it's cowardice. That's the obvious answer. Probably the correct one. Or maybe it's the one unselfish thing I've done in all of this. Letting her keep the version of the story that helps her. That lets her feel stable in where she comes from. In who her parents were. I go back and forth on that. Constantly. Some days I think, you owe her the truth. Other days I think, you'd only be doing that for yourself. And neither of those thoughts feels entirely right. Or entirely wrong. If you're watching this and you have something like this, something you've kept for so long it just becomes part of you, I don't have advice. I wish I did. I really do. But I'm not on the other side of this. I'm still in it. What I can say is, I understand the weight. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just constant. That feeling of being known. but not fully known. Of letting someone love a version of you that's mostly true, close enough to pass, but not exact. And the way that sits in your chest over time. It doesn't explode. It just hums. Low. Steady. Always there. I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. And lately, that not knowing feels heavier than the secret itself. Like it's not just what I did anymore. It's what I'm still choosing. Every single day I don't say anything. And I don't know how long I can keep making that choice. I thought making this would do something. I really did. I thought maybe if I just said it out loud, without editing it, without cleaning it up, something would shift. Like I'd feel lighter. Or clearer. Or at least something sharp enough to recognize. Relief. Guilt. Regret. Anything with an edge. But sitting here now, at the end of this, I mostly just feel tired. Not in a dramatic way. Not like I'm about to fall apart. Just tired. Like I've been holding something up for a long time, arms locked, not even noticing the strain anymore, and I set it down for a little while, and now my arms remember what it felt like to not be holding it. And I know I'm going to have to pick it back up again. And that part feels heavier than I expected. Brianna calls on Sundays. She's going to call in a few days. And I already know how it's going to go. I'll see her name come up on my phone and I'll feel that little lift. Every time, I still feel it, and I'll answer. And I'll hear her voice and I'll be glad. Not complicated glad. Just glad. We'll talk about normal things. Her job. Her boyfriend. Something funny that happened during the week. Maybe a show she's watching that she thinks I should see. She'll ask how I am. And I'll say, I'm good. And it won't be a lie. But it won't be the whole truth either. There's this moment in every call. It's small. You'd miss it if you weren't looking for it. Where there's a pause. Just a second. And sometimes I feel it. Like, this could be it. This could be the moment where I say, hey, there's something I've never told you. And every time, I don't. I let the moment pass. I fill the space with something easy. And we keep going. And I've been trying to understand that. Why I can sit here, in front of a camera, and say all of this, but I can't say it to her. Because that's the real question, right? Not what I did. Not even whether it was right or wrong. But why I can't just tell her. I think part of it is, once I say it, I don't control it anymore. Right now, it lives inside me. Contained. Managed. But if I tell her, really tell her, it becomes hers too. And she gets to feel whatever she feels about it. And I don't get to shape that. I don't get to soften it or guide it or edit it the way I've been editing everything else. It just is what it is. And that scares me more than I want to admit. Because what if it changes how she sees me? Not in some dramatic, I never want to speak to you again way, but in small ways. Quiet ways. The kind that don't announce themselves. The kind that show up later, in hesitation, in distance, in the way she looks at me when I say something and she's trying to decide what it means. I don't know if I can handle that. And I don't know if it's fair to risk that, just so I can feel lighter. Gary's mother, Patricia, called last week. It wasn't a special day. No birthday, no anniversary. She just called. And we talked for a while. About nothing, mostly. The weather. Her garden. The way time moves differently when you're older, she said. And then, before we hung up, she said, I still think about what you did for him. I hope you know what that meant. And I said, thank you. And I meant it. And I didn't mean it. At the same time. Because what I did mean something. That's the part that makes this so complicated. It wasn't fake. It wasn't nothing. I was there. I showed up. I took care of him. That's real. But it wasn't the whole truth either. And I've been living inside that split for so long that I don't know what it would feel like to be on one side of it. Just one. Clean. My therapist asked me something last week. She said, if Brianna never finds out, what does that mean for you? And I didn't have an answer. I still don't. Because part of me thinks, maybe nothing. Maybe this just becomes something I carry. Quietly. until it fades into the background completely. Or until I do. And another part of me thinks, no, that's not true. It already means something. It means every conversation has that layer. Every I love you has something under it. Not false, just not complete. I don't know which version of that is worse. Carrying it forever, or risking changing everything. If you're waiting for me to land somewhere, I'm sorry. I don't have a clean ending for this. No realization. No decision. No moment where I say, this is what I'm going to do. Because I don't know. I'm still right in the middle of it. What I do know is this. I love my daughter. That's not complicated. That's not layered. That's just true. And everything else. Everything I've said. Everything I haven't said. Every choice I made and didn't make. It all sits around that. Pressing in on it. Shaping it, maybe. But not changing it. She'll be here next month. We'll cook. Watch movies. Walk the dog. She'll hug me when she leaves. And I'll hold on to that for a second longer than usual. Just a second. And I'll think, should I tell her? And I already know what I'll probably do. I'll let her go. I'll stand there in the doorway, watching her walk to the car, and I'll tell myself, maybe next time. And maybe there will always be a next time. Or maybe there won't. I don't know. All I know is, right now it's fine. That's the word I keep coming back to. Fine. Everything works. Nothing breaks. Life moves. It's always fine. I just don't know if fine is the same thing as okay. And I don't know how long I can keep pretending that it is.